being a history major, like I know that basically the modern agricultural boom was a straight product of post World War II kind of innovation. I mean, you have to imagine we get out of prior to World War II, it was the Great Depression. The 1930s. That's the story of it. Where people were standing in soup lines and bread lines and just begging to get food. And we all know kind of how many of our grandparents, at least my generation, I'm sure y'all's too, kind of acted. They were very frugal with money because of that. They grew up in that kind of time frame. And so when we won the war and came home and had all this, just like the amount of technology that came out of World War II is just absolutely mind blowing. I mean, everything from modern fertilizers to that's kind of where like the first sort of like modern tractor that any person could buy. I mean, all that stuff was very much honed during that war. And so we all came home in the late 40s and 50s and said, hey, we can utilize all of these badass innovations, tractors and fertilizers and chemicals and stuff, and we can farm. We can put the mule away. We can quit putting manure in our fields. We can just science the hell out of this stuff. And you have to think about it too. Like, this is back when we were building rockets going to the moon. I think a lot of people thought at that time that like technology, and I mean much like some people think today, is that technology is just going to spearhead we're just going to solve it all. Just like technology is just going to save the world. And so I think a lot of people got very wrapped up and a little misguided in trying to use all these things to sort of, save the world or grow more food, and it just became misguided after a point. And what I tell a lot of people that we do out here is like we farm like it's 1920. Like really, that's kind of what we do, is we use a lot of technologies, methods, whatever else that are straight up from the 1930s, 20s, 1910s, prior to real big mechanization. Back when people had like a substantial garden in their backyard that they would work and they'd put up the potatoes, and those potatoes were what they ate through the winter versus relying on potato farmers in Iowa to grow the potatoes, and you just go to Sam's or Publix to pick up your potatoes at your convenience, which is fine. That's just sort of a fact of our modern life. But I think 2020 has brought us back to the thing where it's kind of like, hey, the value of having a garden, or kind of like the way I see myself is, don't call me a farmer, call me like your gardener dude. Like, don't worry about having a garden. Like, I can do that here. Because I get a lot of that. People want to have a really great garden at home, and I talk to them, and they just really don't have a great situation for it. It's, they've got a ton of trees. They don't really know what they're doing. And so that's kind of where I see what us small farmers do, is that we're kind of there to do that for folks. And so that's just kind of, yeah, I mean, and no one had any reason to question the system that we made up until like something like coronavirus, where it just starts knocking down just normalcy after normalcy after normalcy. It's like, oh wait, like you want your chicken just flooding Walmart. Well, you can't, because the workers that work in those chicken plants are all getting sick and they're dying, and you literally got to shut those things down, or whatever else. And so there's never been a point. I mean, you can think about like in the 60s and stuff, we had fear of nuclear war, but even then there was never like just this thing that popped off that just made people where you got to stay home, you got to and just affected stuff so much.